Have you ever felt overwhelmed in your own home? Do you wake up in the morning and see things everywhere that you don't even use anymore, but they're still there? Drawers full, closets that won't even close, and that strange feeling that everything is in your way, but you don't know where to start. Today I'm here to tell you something that maybe nobody has told you. Clutter is a silent form of tiredness. And in Japan, they have been fighting it for centuries in ways that would seem very strange to us, but effective. Today I'm going to tell you 10 Japanese secrets that will not only help you throw away half the things you have, but also transform how you see your home. Because believe me, after this, you won't want to fill it up again. First, the secret of the 5 questions. In Japan, when a person decides to tidy their home, they don't start by moving things around or buying organizer boxes, but by facing each object consciously. And to do this, they use a practice that seems simple but is deeply powerful, asking themselves 5 questions every time they touch something. But it's not just a habit, it's because they know our mind clings to the useless out of fear, emotional attachment, or pure habit. And these 5 questions are a way to break that toxic bond. The first question is, do I use it? Not could I use it? Not did I use it years ago? But do I use it today, this week, this month? And if the answer is no, the first alarm goes off. Because having things you don't use is like carrying stones in an invisible backpack every day. They take up space, collect dust, and drain energy. It's having a drawer full of cables you don't even know what they're for, or dresses you don't wear because you're waiting to lose or gain weight. And in Japan, they see it clearly. If you don't use it, it's dead. The second question is, do I need it? This is where things get interesting, because there are things you may not use all the time, but that are necessary. Like a flashlight for emergencies, or important documents. But watch out, don't confuse necessary with I feel sorry to throw it away. Necessary means its absence would cause you a real problem. And in Japan, they make this distinction with admirable coldness. Because they understand that keeping the unnecessary is a form of fear. The third is, does it make me happy? And this one, although it sounds cheesy, is the hardest. Because sometimes we use things, we need them, but they weigh on us. A set of dishes inherited that you hate but use because it was grandma's. A decoration someone gave you and you never liked. In Japan, they believe every object transmits energy, and surrounding yourself with things that don't make you happy pollutes the environment. So if something doesn't cheer you up, inspire you, or give you peace, it doesn't deserve to be there. The fourth is, can I replace it? Here comes the practical sense. If something can be obtained easily, cheaply, or better, it makes no sense to cling to it. Keeping an old iron that doesn't work well because just in case, when a new one would cost little and work better, is a mental trap. The Japanese prefer to have less but functional. And if something stops being so, they seek to replace it or get rid of it. The fifth, and for me the most brutal, is, would I have it if I had to move tomorrow? Imagine that today you have to move to a smaller space. Would you really take it with you? If the answer is no, then it makes no sense for it to remain in your life. Because if it doesn't deserve space in a new stage, why does it occupy space in this one? This question makes you stop thinking about the maybe, and put everything in immediate perspective. And here comes the golden rule. If at least 2 answers are negative, that object goes. No debate, no looking for another drawer, no asking permission from anyone. Because everything you need to know is in those answers. Japan understands that postponing decisions with objects is postponing decisions with life. That's why they don't see it as throwing away trash, but as freeing space to breathe, to live better, to stop carrying the unnecessary. It's not a game, it's a philosophy. It's learning not to be afraid to let go. Because the more you cling to things, the harder it is to move, change, or start over. And that, for them, is worse than cluttering the house. It's cluttering the soul. Second, the rule of things without a name. There is something very curious in Japanese culture, and that is that they do not conceive having anonymous things in their home. For them, every object must have a name or a clear purpose, something that justifies it, that connects it with its owner. And if it doesn't have that, then it doesn't deserve to be there. They see it as a kind of disguised trash, things that get stuck in life because no one stops to ask why they're still there. Think about this. How many things do you have at home that you couldn't name or describe their function clearly? A tangled cable in a box, a loose button, a vase without flowers for years, a notebook you don't even remember why you bought it, or worse, a decoration you don't know who gave you or what it does on the shelf. Those things, although harmless at first glance, create visual, emotional, and mental noise. And in Japan, they know that in the long run, that feels like an invisible burden. They say that an object without a name is like an uninvited guest in your home. It's occupying space, stealing energy, but no one knows who it is or why it's there. And if you can't name it, you can't defend its presence either. That's why they have the habit of walking through their home and pointing at things saying, "This is my drawing notebook, this is my cup for afternoon tea, this is the cushion I use when I read." And if they come across something they can't name or give a purpose to, it automatically becomes a candidate to go. Because in their philosophy, everything that occupies a place in your life should have a present meaning, not a vague past or a possible future. Keeping an old t-shirt for sleeping, when you have better ones, or keeping a broken lamp you've been meaning to fix for years, is just a way to fool yourself. And for them, that self-deception is what ends up filling homes with sentimental trash and inert things. The curious thing is that they make no distinction between expensive or cheap things, gifted or bought. A brand name purse without purpose is just as dispensable as an old plastic bag. What matters is whether you know why it's there, if it fulfills a function, or if it gives you something. And here's the interesting part, giving things a name is not just to identify them, but to make them visible to your consciousness. When something has a name, you see it, recognize it, and decide if it still deserves its place. When it doesn't, it becomes part of the dead landscape of the house. And in Japan, homes are not warehouses for nameless things, but thoughtful, intentional spaces where every object accompanies you and does not get in the way. That's why, the next time you look around and see things you wouldn't know how to present if someone asked you, "What is that and why do you have it?" maybe you should consider if it deserves to stay. Because as the Japanese say, a house full of nameless objects is a home without a soul. Third, the ritual of gratitude before discarding. In Japan, getting rid of something is not simply throwing it in the trash. It is a small act of respect. It may sound strange to us, but for them, every object that was once part of your life deserves to be bid farewell with gratitude. And it's not an exaggerated or religious ritual, it's a way of closing cycles with the material so you don't carry useless guilt. When they decide something is leaving, they don't toss it out abruptly. They take it in their hands, look at it, remember what it served for, and thank it quietly. "Thank you for accompanying me, thank you for fulfilling your function, thank you for making me happy at the time." It's a brief moment, but it has enormous power. It allows you to let go without guilt. Because we all know that absurd feeling of feeling bad for throwing away an old shirt, a torn letter, or an ornament from years ago. It's like when you throw it away, you're betraying a memory, a promise, or the person who gave it to you. And the worst part is that this leads us to keep things we no longer use, that take up space and are only there because we feel remorse about getting rid of them. In Japan, they understand that this remorse does not come from the object, but from oneself. And that's why the ritual of gratitude is more for you than for the thing that is leaving. It allows you to recognize that it was useful, that it fulfilled its time, and that now it deserves to give way to something new, or simply disappear. That way it doesn't feel like losing, but like freeing. Even with broken or useless objects. If a cup breaks, they don't throw it away like indifferent trash. They hold it and say, "Thank you for giving me hot tea all those mornings." It's simple, but it clears accumulated emotion. And with that, the object stops having power over you. It leaves as it should, without weight, without drama, without that little voice inside saying, "But it still works," or "It was a gift." The Japanese believe that things absorb the energy of their surroundings. And if you get rid of them violently or indifferently, that emotional disorder remains in the space. That's why they prefer to close each farewell properly. Because in the end, it's not just about throwing out trash, it's about ordering your mind and your heart. And when you start doing this, you realize how easy it is to let go when you give it a sense of closure. Imagine doing this with that drawer full of things that weigh on you. Holding each one, thanking it, letting it go. Not because it's valuable, not because it works, but because it already fulfilled its time with you. It's a practice that changes you. It teaches you to value what you have while you have it, and to let go when it no longer belongs to you. Because in Japan, gratitude is not just for people. It is also practiced with things. And when you live like this, your home fills with objects that matter, not relics from the past that tie you down pointlessly. Fourth, the 10-minute technique. This technique is one of those simple things that, when told to you, sounds ridiculous. But when you apply it, you understand why in Japan they recommend it so much, especially for housewives who feel the clutter has gotten out of control and don't know where to start. It works like this. You choose a small area. Not an entire room, not a whole cupboard, not that closet that has been waiting for you for months. Just a part. A drawer, a shelf, a bag, a compartment. And you set a timer for 10 minutes. Just 10. Not one more. The trick is not to let it become an eternal cleaning session that exhausts you. During those 10 minutes, your only mission is to touch every object in that area and decide without hesitation, does it stay or does it go? No, maybe later, or when I have time. If you use it, you keep it. If not, out it goes. No second guessing, no emotional excuses, no silly pause like, let me see if I remember who gave it to me. It's 10 minutes of relentless action. And the incredible thing is that it works because it cuts mental overwhelm. You don't have to face the entire chaos of your house, only that little corner. And when the timer goes off, you stop. Even if you haven't finished. Because the point is not to finish, but to make progress without tiring yourself. That's the Japanese key, consistency without exhaustion. They prefer 10 well-done minutes every day than 5 hours in one day only to revert back to clutter a week later. The best part is that when you repeat it daily, your house begins to change without you realizing it. In a week, those drawers you avoided opening no longer embarrass you. The spaces breathe. You realize how many things you kept out of inertia. And every day it weighs less. The Japanese say that when you clean a corner of your house, you also clean a corner of your mind. That's why they do it slowly but consistently. Because cleaning without exhaustion allows you to create a healthy relationship with order, without associating it with sacrifice or tiredness. Also, there is something psychological about that timer. Knowing you only have 10 minutes turns the process into a challenge, into a game. You focus, you move quickly, you don't get tangled up. And the curious thing is that many times, when the timer rings you already want to continue. But the rule says no. You stop and leave it for tomorrow. That way you don't overwhelm your energy or your patience. And that's where the real secret lies. Small, consistent discipline always beats huge, isolated effort. That's why Japanese homes look tidy not because they kill themselves cleaning, but because they have brief rituals that are repeated. If today you take a drawer in your kitchen, set 10 minutes, and decide what serves a purpose and what doesn't, without sentimentality, tomorrow you'll feel lighter. And if you repeat it for a week, that feeling of overwhelm you have when you enter your home will start to disappear. It's inevitable. Because, unbelievable as it seems, 10 minutes of tidying up a day can change how you feel in your own home. Fifth, not keeping things just in case. This is probably one of the most brutal and liberating philosophies the Japanese have about possessions. They don't accumulate things, just in case someday. That phrase doesn't exist in their domestic culture. Because they understand that just in case rarely comes. And while you wait, that item takes up physical space, mental space, and keeps you tied to a possibility you secretly know will never happen. They say it bluntly, if I don't need it today, I won't need it later. And believe me, it works. Because the truth is that old cable, that empty vase, that faded shirt you saved for painting, that jar lid you kept in case another breaks, have been there for years waiting for their chance, and it never comes. The Japanese believe that holding on to things out of fear you might need them someday isn't foresight, it's poorly managed fear. It's a way of chaining yourself to the past and the future at the same time. To the past because you don't want to let go, and to the future because you fear you won't have it. Meanwhile, you live uncomfortably in a present full of useless things. That's why when they organize, they apply a very clear rule. If you haven't used it in the last 6 months and you don't need it now, it goes. No sentimentality, no hypotheses. Because they know that 90% of just-in-case things never get used. And if you ever do need them, most likely you won't even remember you had them, or they're so deteriorated they won't help. Even kitchen items, tools, or papers. They don't keep manuals for devices that no longer exist, phone charger cables for models replaced 5 years ago, ugly decorations someone left on a visit. All that goes, because free space is worth more than the remote chance of needing something unused for years. The funniest thing is that when you get rid of those things, you don't miss them. Ever. And the worst part, you realize you didn't even remember they existed. And that's the point. If you didn't know it was there, why did you want to keep it? It's a mindset not based on extreme minimalism, but on common sense. Because in the end, the home is meant to be lived in comfortably, not to store ghosts of just in case. So ask yourself right now, how many things in your house are only taking up space because someday maybe? And be honest. Because what the Japanese discovered is that just in case never comes. And while you wait, those objects steal your space, energy, and peace of mind. And when you start letting go of that, your home feels lighter. You breathe better. And you discover that living with less is not a sacrifice, it's rest. Because in the end, the only thing you truly need is what you use today. The rest is dead weight. Sixth, the technique of empty space. This concept is one of those ideas that sounds absurd when you hear it. But when you try it, you understand why Japanese homes feel lighter, calmer, and more breathable. They value emptiness as much as objects. They consider it an essential part of a good atmosphere. While in many Western homes the obsession is to fill every space with something: a decoration, a photo, a plant, a lamp, a painting, a chandelier, anything to cover that uncomfortable gap, the Japanese do the opposite. They deliberately leave gaps. Empty spaces. Half-empty shelves. Walls with nothing. Corners without decorations. Not because they lack objects, but because they understand that emptiness also decorates. For them, an empty space clears the mind, reduces visual noise, and relieves anxiety. And it makes sense. Think about the last time you entered a cluttered room, with furniture piled up, decorations everywhere, and things on every table. You feel overwhelmed even if you don't notice it consciously. Your brain has to process all that at once. Every object shouts, "Look at me, I exist, I take up space." It's exhausting. Instead, when you enter a space with gaps, where a shelf has only 2 or 3 carefully chosen objects and the rest is air, your mind relaxes. You don't have to look anywhere else. You don't have to process unnecessary stimuli. There is visual and mental rest. That's why the Japanese say emptiness also communicates. Not everything is said with things, sometimes it's said with their absence. They apply this to their shelves, tables, walls, and closets. They don't fill every gap just because they can, they let it breathe. A shelf with one object becomes important. A wall without pictures becomes light. A table without unnecessary decorations becomes available space, and that available space transmits calm. Even in closets. They prefer to leave a drawer half empty rather than fill it to use up the leftover space. Because they understand that a home isn't for storing objects, but for providing peace. And emptiness is part of that peace. I invite you to try this right now. Choose a shelf, a table, or a corner of your living room. Take everything off it. Leave only 1 or 2 objects you truly like. Look at how it looks, how it feels. You'll notice that suddenly, that space seems cleaner, tidier, more yours. And best of all, you feel like you breathe better. It's a small change that transforms a lot. Because emptiness is not a lack of things, it's available space for you to feel better. And a house full of well-thought-out gaps is a house that calms you instead of upsetting you. That's why the Japanese don't fill everything up. Because they understood something that in the West is still hard to accept. You don't need to have something in every space for your home to look good. Sometimes, the best thing you can put in a corner is nothing. Seventh, the rule of 1 in, 1 out. This is, without a doubt, one of the harshest but also most effective rules the Japanese have to prevent their home from turning into a storage room disguised as a house. They call it 1 in, 1 out. And it's literal. Here's how it works. If you buy a new shirt, another one goes. If a decoration arrives, one you already have leaves. If someone gives you a mug, you check which one you can get rid of. No exceptions. No hidden hoarding. No, well, I'll keep this just in case. Always when something comes in, something else must go out. Why do they do this? because they understood that the only real way to avoid excess is not just to tidy up, but to control what comes in. And honestly, if you think about it, it makes sense. You can tidy your closet 1,000 times, empty drawers, and take out bags of old stuff. But if you keep buying and bringing in new things without removing the old ones, in 6 months you'll be in the same or worse situation. It's an endless cycle. They broke that cycle with this rule. And not only does it force you to keep balance, but it makes you shop more consciously. Because you know that if you pick a new blouse, you'll have to get rid of another one. And then you ask yourself, do I really want this blouse so much that it's worth taking the place of another? Do I like it more than the ones I already have? Is it worth it? And many times, the answer is no. So you don't buy it. It's a simple way to put a stop to impulse buying. To stop accumulating pretty but unnecessary things. And to keep your space under control without the need for big cleanups every 3 months. And note, it's not just for clothes. It applies to everything: books, decorations, dishes, shoes, cosmetics, papers, accessories. If a new book arrives on the shelf, another one has to go. If you buy a new perfume, one you don't use much goes. Always. It's uncomfortable at first. It's hard to let go. But once you turn it into a habit, you realize you never again have meaningless clutter. Because every new thing has to earn its place. And that makes you surround yourself only with things you truly like, use, and value. It even works emotionally. Because many times we cling to things out of habit, not affection. And when you apply this rule, you force yourself to review your relationship with objects. To ask yourself why you keep certain things. If you really want them, or if you just have them out of inertia. I recommend you try it. Next time you're going to buy something or someone gives you something, before bringing it into your home, think about what item will have to leave to make space. If you're not willing to let something go, maybe you don't really need that new thing. And little by little, you'll see how your home stays tidy, light, and filled only with things that truly add value. It's tough, yes. But it's the most effective method to prevent your home from filling up with useless things. Because in Japan they learned something very simple. The space in your home is finite, and everything you bring in takes up mental and physical space. And if you don't watch what comes in, sooner or later it will overwhelm you. 8th, things don't have the right to stay just because they were expensive. This principle is one of the most liberating lessons we can learn from Japanese culture. Because, let's face it, how many times have you looked at an object, a garment, or an accessory that you no longer use, no longer like, or just find in the way, but you can't get rid of it because it was expensive? Because it cost money, sometimes a lot. Because you tell yourself, I feel bad throwing it away, I paid so much for this. That idea doesn't exist in Japan. For them, the value an item had the day you bought it doesn't give it the right to stay forever in your life. Because they understand that something unused, regardless of whether it cost $10 or $500, is exactly the same, a nuisance. An object without function that takes up physical and mental space. And it makes sense. The price of something is at the moment of purchase. It completes its value cycle when you use it, enjoy it, it serves you. But once it stops doing that, its price doesn't matter, because it's not contributing anything to your life right now. Keeping it only for its purchase value is like maintaining a relationship that no longer makes you happy just because it was nice once. The Japanese take this to the extreme with a phrase I love: expensive or cheap, if it's not used, it's trash anyway. It doesn't matter if it was a silver ring or a branded blouse. If you don't use it, it's taking up space you could free. This is especially harsh with luxury items. That designer purse that cost you half a paycheck but you never use because it's uncomfortable. That super expensive perfume you don't really like, but you don't dare to throw away. That costly kitchen appliance you swore you'd use and has been stored away for 2 years. According to this philosophy, all that should go. Because if you keep it just for what it cost, deep down you're accepting that your home becomes a warehouse of economic guilt. Also, when you keep things because of their price and not for their usefulness or what they add to your current life, you fill yourself with heavy energy, emotional baggage. Because every time you see that object, you think about the money you spent, the mistake of buying it, the excuse not to get rid of it. And all that is mental wear and tear you could avoid if you simply let it go. The Japanese don't do it just for order, but because they know that letting go of those meaningless objects makes you feel lighter. It frees you from the pressure of having wasted money and reminds you that the true value of a thing is in its use, not in its price tag. So I propose an exercise. Today, pick one object you keep only because it was expensive, not because you like or use it. Take it out. Gift it, sell it, donate it, or throw it away, but free yourself from it. Notice how that small act of rebellion against economic guilt feels. You'll see it hurts for 2 seconds, and then you feel free. Because expensive things that aren't used are just fancy trash. And your home deserves more space for living things than for monuments to past purchases. 9th, the value of visual silence. This Japanese principle is one of the most subtle, yet also one of the most powerful. Because it's not just about tidying up or having fewer things, but about controlling the visual environment where you live. They call it ma, which means the value of space and silence. And not just sound silence, but visual silence. Here's what I mean. Every object you have in sight, every decoration, every jar on a table, every little box on a shelf, speaks to your brain. Even if you don't hear it consciously, your mind does. And all those objects, colors, and different shapes create a dull noise, a kind of constant visual saturation that wears you down without you realizing it. In Japan, they believe too many things in sight narrow the mind. Cluttered surfaces, unordered decorations, shelves full of figurines, jars, or papers, these are like visual chatter that keeps you alert. Even if you think you've gotten used to it, your brain is never fully calm because it's receiving too much information all at once. That's why they highly value clean surfaces. Tables with nothing or just one meaningful object. Shelves with space, with intentional gaps. Walls without saturation. Everything designed so your eyes can breathe. Because when your surroundings don't visually bombard you, your mind calms down, slows its pace, and that silent calm so typical of Japanese homes emerges. And note, this isn't cold minimalism. It's not about having your home look like a personality-less clinic. It's about making sure every object you decide to keep visible has a purpose. That it transmits peace, beauty, or usefulness. That it's not decorative noise. That it's not there just because. They think spaces also speak. And when you fill every gap with things just because it looks empty or space has to be used, what you really do is invade the visual tranquility of your own home. And with that, your mind. That's why Japanese houses don't have 1,000 decorations on the dresser, kitchens don't have 20 jars on the countertop, and shelves aren't full of junk. There's space. There's visual silence. There's order, but above all, there's pause. I encourage you to try it. Look right now at a shelf, table, or wall in your home. Count how many objects you have in sight. Do they all really add something to you? Do they all make you feel good? If not, remove them. Store some away. Leave only the essentials or the things that truly make you smile. Notice how the atmosphere changes. How suddenly, that place breathes. And so do you. Because they understood something brilliant. When your home calms down, so does your mind. And that visual silence, that absence of unnecessary noise, is a luxury that costs nothing and gives back a lot. 10th, your home should feel like a refuge, not a storage room. This last principle is perhaps the deepest of all. Because it's not just about tidying, leaving empty spaces, or avoiding accumulation. It's about identity and well-being. For the Japanese, the home should be a refuge, not a storage room. And the difference between those two things is vast. A storage room is a place where things are kept. Things you don't use, things that don't serve you, things you don't want to see but don't dare to let go. A storage room is a dead space, a place where objects accumulate without intention, just out of inertia. And often, without realizing it, we turn our homes into that. Every drawer full of old cables. Every box in the attic unopened for years. Every corner of the house saturated with decorations you don't even remember where they came from. Every garment stored with the excuse of one day. All these are symptoms of a home becoming a storage room. And the danger is that when your home starts to look like a storage room, you stop feeling it as a refuge. It loses that feeling of warmth, calm, of coming back after a tough day and finding peace. It becomes a place full of invisible burdens. Every extra thing is a subtle reminder of something unresolved, a decision postponed, a space that should be free. The Japanese are very clear that everything in their home must have a purpose, a function, or a beauty that adds something to the environment. If not, it goes without guilt. Because they learned that the true value of a home isn't in the amount of things it holds, but in how it makes you feel when you enter it. And it's so true. How many times have you come home and instead of relaxing, you feel a kind of discomfort? Sometimes you don't even know why. But it's that pile of things, that visual excess, that stagnant energy of meaningless objects surrounding you. When you understand that your home should be a refuge that supports you, not a storage room that weighs you down, you change how you relate to what you have. And you start throwing things out without fear. Because you no longer see an ugly decoration as something that cost money, but as a thief of visual space. You no longer see an old garment as "I'll wear it someday," but as a weight taking up space in your closet and in your head. You start choosing. Saying, "This makes me feel good, this gives me peace, this stays." And everything else out. And with everything you let go, your home looks more like you, and less like someone else's storage room. Because a home is not for storing things. It's for living in. For breathing in. For taking refuge in its calm. For looking at it and feeling safe. Everything that doesn't contribute to that is excess. And when you see it that way, tidying up stops being a heavy chore and becomes an act of self-care. So now I ask you seriously, straight up and without beating around the bush, how many things do you have right now around you that you don't even know why they're there? Things you don't use, don't need, don't make you happy, things you don't even remember where they came from. And even if you don't notice, they are stealing your space, your air, and your peace every day. Because if you truly want to feel like you're breathing in your own home, if you want your home to welcome you instead of weighing you down, if you want to stop feeling surrounded by dead objects that no longer mean anything, you have to start letting go. Without guilt, without excuses, without those phrases like "but someday," or "it was expensive," or "it belonged to so-and-so." Because none of that is more important than your mental peace. Japan understood this centuries ago. That's why their homes are not just clean or pretty. They're light. Light of unnecessary objects, sad memories, things kept out of obligation. Every object has its meaning, its purpose, or its beauty. And everything that doesn't follow that rule goes away. Because life is too short to live in an emotional storage room. So do it. Don't overthink it. Grab a bag right now. Start with a drawer, a shelf, a corner. Take out everything that doesn't add to you, everything you don't even recognize, everything you know doesn't make sense to keep there. You'll see how the air in your home changes. How, without realizing it, you breathe easier, think clearer, and feel lighter. And if you liked this video, subscribe because more strange but brilliant Japanese secrets are coming. Secrets not only for tidying up a house but for organizing your mind and soul. Thanks for staying until the end. And now stop looking at screens, grab that bag, and start.